Captain Lisa Morgan stood at the main window of her ship, the UE's Defiant. Through the thick glass, she watched 3 strange alien ships approach. Today was important. Today, Earth would ask to join the Galactic Council. Lisa had been chosen to represent humanity's military forces. She had prepared for this meeting for months. Lisa knew every detail about Earth's weapons, ships, and soldiers. She understood human battle strategies better than anyone. But as she watched the alien ships dock with her vessel, she felt a familiar knot in her stomach. The first aliens to board were the Xanthari. They looked like giant insects walking on 2 legs. Their leader, Commander Vextar, had 4 arms and eyes that never seemed to blink. His mouth clicked and buzzed when he spoke. Behind him walked 6 other Xanthari. Soldiers, all carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Lisa stepped forward and offered a respectful bow. "Commander Vextar, welcome aboard the UE's Defiant. I am Captain Lisa Morgan." Vextar looked down at her. His head tilted to one side. "You are the human military representative?" His voice sounded like grinding metal. "Yes, sir. I command Earth's Deep Space Fleet and serve as tactical advisor to—" "Where are your weapons?" Vextar interrupted. He walked around Lisa, studying her uniform. "Human females fight?" Lisa kept her voice steady. "Human military service is open to all qualified individuals regardless of gender. My record shows." "Interesting." Vextar made a sound like laughter, but it was cold and harsh. He turned to his soldiers and spoke in their clicking language. They all made the same laughing sound. The second group of aliens arrived next. These were the Kelmarians, and they looked nothing like the Xanthari. The Kelmarians appeared to be made of living crystal. Their bodies caught the ship's lights and threw rainbows across the walls. Their leader, High Strategist Quillanth, moved with smooth, flowing steps. "Greetings, Captain Morgan," Quillanth said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "We have studied your species' military records. They are ... limited." Lisa nodded politely. "We appreciate the Council's interest in ASEAN humanity. I believe our contributions could benefit. Your ships are quite small." Quillanth continued, not waiting for Lisa to finish. "Your weapons use chemical explosives, very primitive. We expected Earth to send someone more ... impressive." "Commander." Vextar clicked his approval. "The Kelmarians speak truth. Where are your battle scars, human? Where are your victory marks?" Lisa touched her uniform where several service ribbons were attached. Human military tradition honors service through these ribbons. Vextar's 4 arms waved dismissively. "Pretty cloth for pretty soldiers. Real warriors wear their victories in their flesh." Admiral Richard Kane entered the meeting room at that moment. He was Lisa's commanding officer and had served in Earth's Space Navy for 30 years. His gray hair and lined face showed his experience. "Welcome, honored delegates," Admiral Kane said with a warm smile. "I hope Captain Morgan has made you comfortable. She's one of our finest officers." Quillanth's crystalline form shifted slightly. "Admiral Kane, we were expecting to meet with your primary military leader. This captain seems very ... quiet." "Captain Morgan is exactly who you should meet," Admiral Kane replied. "She designed our current fleet formations and has never lost a strategic simulation. Her tactical innovations have simulations." Vextar interrupted with another harsh laugh. "Human games. We fight real battles against real enemies. We spill real blood." Lisa remained silent, but her mind worked quickly. She watched how Vextar moved, how his soldiers positioned themselves. The Xanthari favored direct attacks. They liked to charge straight at their enemies. Their weapons were powerful but required close range to be most effective. The Kelmarians were different. Quillanth kept her distance from everyone. Her people relied on defensive barriers and long-range attacks. They were careful, methodical, but they seemed uncomfortable with unexpected changes. Admiral Kane began his presentation about Earth's military capabilities. He showed images of human ships, weapons, and soldiers. Lisa noticed how the aliens reacted to each piece of information. They were not impressed by human technology, but they were revealing their own weaknesses without realizing it. Your largest ship carries only 500 crew members, Vextar observed. Our smallest war vessel carries 2,000 warriors. Quality over quantity has always been humanity's approach, Admiral Kane explained. Our crews are highly trained and can adapt to many different situations. Adaptation is weakness, Vextar replied. Strength comes from power. Power comes from numbers. Your small ships would be destroyed in the first moments of real combat, Quillenth agreed. Our defensive matrices can stop any projectile weapon your species possesses. Your chemical explosives would barely scratch our hull plating. Lisa continued to listen and watch. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they freely discussed their military strengths. They described their battle tactics, their ship designs, their favorite weapons. They thought humans were too primitive to be a threat, so they saw no harm in sharing information. Captain Morgan, Quillen said suddenly, you have been very quiet. Do you have nothing to say about your species' military might? All eyes turned to Lisa. Admiral Kane looked at her encouragingly. The alien delegates waited with what seemed like amused interest. Lisa chose her words carefully. I believe actions speak louder than words. Vextar's 4 arms crossed over his chest. Wise words from someone who has never taken action. Human. Females may serve in your military, but do they fight? Every human serves according to their abilities, Lisa replied calmly. Such diplomatic language, Quillenth observed. We have found that species who speak in such careful words usually lack the courage for direct confrontation. The meeting continued for several more hours. Admiral Kane presented humanity's achievements in space exploration, technological development, and peaceful conflict resolution. The aliens listened with barely concealed boredom. They asked few questions and showed little interest in human accomplishments. When the formal presentations ended, the delegates prepared to return to their ships. Commander Vextar approached Lisa one final time. Captain Morgan, you seem intelligent. For a human. But intelligence without strength is useless in this galaxy. Perhaps your species should focus on trade rather than military membership in the Council. We will consider all options, Lisa replied. As the aliens departed, Lisa heard Vextar speaking to his aide in their clicking language. She had learned enough Zenthari words to understand the basic meaning. Humans were too weak to be real warriors. Their military representative could not even speak up during important discussions. The Kelmorian delegation passed by next. Quillenth paused near Lisa and spoke quietly. Your admiral speaks well of your abilities, Captain. But we judge warriors by their actions in battle, not by their performance in simulation chambers. Perhaps your species would benefit from more vocal leadership. When the aliens had gone, Admiral Kane found Lisa still standing at the main window. That could have gone better, he said with a sigh. Lisa nodded, but her expression was thoughtful rather than disappointed. It went exactly as I expected, sir. They barely listened to anything we said. They think we're too primitive to matter. Yes, sir, they do. Lisa turned away from the window. And that might be the most valuable thing we learned today. Admiral. Kane looked puzzled, but Lisa was already walking toward the door. In her mind, she was cataloging everything she had observed. The aliens had underestimated humanity completely. They had revealed their tactical preferences, their technological limitations, and their greatest weakness of all, their arrogance. Lisa Morgan had always been a careful observer. Today, she had been dismissed as weak and insignificant. The aliens thought her silence meant she had nothing to offer. They would learn how wrong they were. 6 months had passed since the failed meeting with the Galactic Council. Captain Lisa Morgan now stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, humanity's newest and most advanced ship. Earth had built 12 more vessels like it, all equipped with improved weapons and better shields. But Lisa knew the real improvements were not in the ships themselves. The real improvements were in her understanding of their enemies. Lieutenant Commander Susan Hayes approached Lisa with a data pad in her hands. "Captain, we're receiving priority signals from Council Command. It looks serious." Lisa took the pad and read the message. Her expression remained calm, but inside she felt a familiar tension. The Void Syndicate was moving. Intelligence reports showed massive fleet formations gathering in 3 different sectors. The enemy was preparing for something big. "Send word to Admiral Kane," Lisa ordered. "Tell him we're ready to deploy if needed." "Yes, ma'am. Should I prepare the fleet for combat operations?" Lisa shook her head. "Not yet. First we listen." 2 days later, Lisa found herself back in a council meeting room. This time, the location was different. Instead of her own ship, she stood aboard the massive council station orbiting the planet Nexus Prime. The station was huge, bigger than some human cities. Its halls were filled with dozens of different alien species, all talking in languages that sounded like music, grinding metal, or electronic beeps. The emergency meeting was already in progress when Lisa arrived. Admiral Kane walked beside her, along with Colonel Jake Morrison and General Patricia Webb. The humans were clearly outnumbered in the room, filled with alien military leaders. Commander Vextar stood at the center of the room, his forearms moving. As he spoke, the Syndicate approaches with over 3,000 ships divided into 3 attack fleets. They target New Kelmer, our colony worlds, and this station simultaneously. High Strategist Quillant's crystalline form shimmered with worry. "Our analysis confirms the threat. The Syndicate has never attempted such a large coordinated attack before. They must have found new allies or new technology." An alien Lisa had never seen before raised a tentacled arm. This was General Mordak of the Hegemony, a species that looked like giant octopuses with armor plating. "My fleets can defend the Nexus station. We have fought the Syndicate before and won. The Zenthari will protect our colonies," Vextar declared. "We fear no enemy, no matter how many ships they bring." Quillanth nodded her agreement. "The Kelmorian Defense Fleet will hold New Kelmer. Our barriers have never been broken." Lisa listened carefully to each species as they described their defensive plans. The patterns were the same as 6 months ago. The Zenthari wanted to attack head-on with maximum force. The Kelmorians planned to hide behind their energy shields and fight defensively. The other species had similar approaches, all based on traditional military thinking. Admiral Kane raised his hand to speak. "The human fleet stands ready to assist wherever needed. Captain Morgan has developed some tactical suggestions that might be helpful." The room fell quiet. Lisa could feel dozens of alien eyes focusing on her. She remembered the last time this had happened, when they had dismissed her ideas without even listening. Commander Vextar clicked his mandibles. "The human captain who speaks little, what wisdom does she offer?" Lisa stepped forward. "The Syndicate's strength comes from coordination. They're attacking 3 targets at once to divide our forces. But coordination can be disrupted." "Disrupted how?" Quillanth asked. Her tone suggested she was asking only to be polite. "By targeting their command and communication systems rather than engaging their main fleets directly." General Mordak tentacles waved dismissively. "Small raids cannot stop 3,000 enemy ships. This requires major fleet action." "Sometimes small actions have big results," Lisa replied quietly. Vextar made his harsh laughing sound. "Human philosophy. Pretty words that mean nothing in real battle. When the Syndicate comes, they will bring fire and death. Only strength can stop strength." The meeting continued for several more hours. The alien commanders finalized their defensive plans, which all involved meeting the Syndicate fleets in direct combat. They would use their most powerful ships and their best weapons to destroy as many enemies as possible. It was exactly what Lisa had expected them to plan. When the meeting ended, Lisa walked with her human colleagues through the station's corridors. Colonel Morrison shook his head in frustration. "They're going to get slaughtered," he said quietly. "The Syndicate wouldn't attempt this attack unless they were confident they could win." General Webb agreed. 3 simultaneous strikes means they've been planning this for months, maybe years. They know exactly how the Council species will respond. Admiral Kane looked at Lisa. "You have that expression again." "The same one you had after our first meeting with the Council." Lisa stopped walking and turned to face her officers. "I've been studying Syndicate tactics for 6 months. They don't just attack randomly. Every move they make serves a larger purpose." "What purpose?" Morrison asked. "Control of the major trade routes," Lisa explained. "If they take New Kelmer, the Zenthari colonies, and Nexus Station, they'll control the 3 most important shipping lanes in this sector. Every merchant ship will have to pay them tribute or find much longer routes to their destinations. So this isn't just a military conquest," Webb realized. "It's an economic takeover." Lisa nodded. "And they're counting on the Council species to respond exactly as they did in that meeting. Direct confrontation, traditional battle tactics, predictable defensive positions." Admiral Kane studied Lisa's face carefully. "You have a plan, don't you?" "I have an idea," Lisa replied. "But it requires our ships to be in very specific positions when the attack begins." "What positions?" Lisa pulled out her personal data pad and showed them a star chart. Red dots marked the 3 target locations. Blue dots showed where the Council fleets would position themselves. Green dots showed where Lisa wanted to place human ships. "These locations don't make sense," Morrison observed. "They're too far from the main battle areas to provide support." "They're not meant to provide support to the main battles," Lisa explained. "They're meant to prevent the battles from happening the way the Syndicate expects." General Webb studied the chart more carefully. "You want to hit their supply lines and communication relays. The Syndicate is coordinating 3 separate attacks across a huge area of space. They need constant communication between their fleets to make sure the timing works perfectly. If we disrupt that communication at the right moment, their coordination falls apart," Admiral Kane finished. 3 organized attacks become 3 separate battles. Lisa smiled slightly. "And 3 separate battles can be won by defenders who know their own territory and have good defensive positions. But the Council commanders will never approve this plan," Morrison pointed out. "They think our ships are too small and weak to matter in a major battle. That's why we don't ask for approval," Lisa said. "We tell them we're conducting routine patrols in sectors that don't seem important. By the time the attack begins, we'll already be in position." Admiral Kane looked concerned. "This is risky, Lisa. If we're wrong about the Syndicate's plans, human ships could be caught in the wrong places when the fighting starts. If we're wrong, the Council fleets will handle the Syndicate the same way they've handled every other threat," Lisa replied. "But if we're right, and we do nothing, the Council loses 3 major worlds and humanity gets blamed for not contributing to the defense." The 4 human officers stood in silence for several moments, each thinking about the risks and possibilities. Finally, Admiral Kane made his decision. "How long do we have to get our ships in position?" Lisa checked her data pad. "Intelligence estimates the Syndicate will attack within 72 hours. Our ships can reach their assigned positions in 48 hours if we leave immediately." "Then we leave immediately," Kane decided. "But Lisa, this plan better work. If it doesn't, we'll be explaining to Earth Command why we scattered our fleet across empty space while the galaxy burned." Lisa nodded. "I understand, sir. But I've been watching and learning for 6 months. The Syndicate is predictable. The Council species are predictable. The only unpredictable element in this situation is us. Because they still think we don't matter, Webb realized. Exactly, Lisa confirmed. They dismissed us 6 months ago, and they dismissed us again today. That gives us the one advantage we need. They won't see us coming. Within hours, human. Ships began leaving their assigned patrol routes and moving toward new positions. To any observer, it looked like routine fleet movements. The ships traveled alone or in small groups, taking different routes to avoid attracting attention. Captain Lisa Morgan returned to the bridge of the HFY Horizon and began the careful process of coordinating 12 ships across 3 star systems. Her officers worked quietly and efficiently, preparing for a battle that most of the galaxy didn't know was coming. In her private moments, Lisa allowed herself to feel the weight of responsibility. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy depended on the next few days. If her plan failed, Earth might never get another chance to prove itself worthy of Council membership. But if her plan succeeded, the galaxy would learn that humanity's quiet observers had been paying very close attention indeed. The attack came at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Captain Lisa Morgan watched from the bridge of the HFY Horizon as emergency signals flooded the communication channels. Red warnings flashed across every screen in the ship's control center. The Void Syndicate had begun their assault exactly as her intelligence reports had predicted. Captain, we're receiving distress calls from all 3 target zones, reported Lieutenant Sarah Davis from the communications station. New Kelmer, the Xanthari colonies, and Nexus Station are all under attack simultaneously. Lisa studied the tactical display showing the entire battle zone. 3 separate conflicts were happening across dozens of light years. Each one was massive, involving hundreds of ships and millions of lives. But from her position, she could see patterns that the individual commanders in each battle could not. "Show me New Kelmer first," Lisa ordered. The main screen switched to display the battle around the Kelmerian homeworld. High Strategist Quillenth's defensive fleet had arranged itself in a perfect formation around the planet. Their crystalline ships gleamed like jewels as they powered up their famous energy. Barriers. The barriers formed a glowing dome around New Kelmer, protecting the world from any direct attack. The Syndicate fleet approached in a massive wave of dark ships. Lisa counted over 800 enemy vessels, all bristling with weapons. But instead of trying to break through the Kelmerian barriers, the Syndicate did something unexpected. They stopped just outside the barrier range and began a steady bombardment. "They're not trying to break through immediately," observed Commander Alex Carter, Lisa's tactical officer. "They're testing the barrier strength," Lisa nodded. "The Syndicate knows the Kelmerian barriers can't be maintained indefinitely. Every shot they absorb drains power from the generators. They're planning to exhaust the barriers through sustained fire." On the screen, they could see the Kelmerian barriers beginning to flicker under the constant bombardment. Quillenth's ships were trapped inside their own defensive dome, unable to launch effective counterattacks without lowering their protection. "Switch to the Xanthari colonies," Lisa commanded. The display changed to show a very different kind of battle. Commander Vex Tar had led his insectoid warriors in a massive charge against the Syndicate fleet. Xanthari ships flew in tight formations, all weapons firing as they rushed toward their enemies. The space around the colonies was filled with explosions and debris from both sides, but the Syndicate had prepared for this aggressive response. As the Xanthari ships charged forward, more enemy vessels appeared from hidden positions behind asteroids and small moons. The brave Xanthari warriors found themselves surrounded, fighting enemies from all directions. "The Xanthari are taking heavy losses," Carter reported. "They're outnumbered 3-1. Lisa watched as Vextar's flagship fired its main weapons at a Syndicate cruiser. The enemy ship exploded in a brilliant flash, but 2 more immediately took its place. The Xanthari were fierce fighters, but they were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Now show me Nexus Station, Lisa said. The third battle was the most chaotic of all. General Morgas' multi-species defense fleet was trying to coordinate ships from dozens of different worlds. Some vessels used energy weapons, others fired projectiles, and still others launched fighter squadrons. The result was confusion as different species tried to work together using incompatible tactics. Syndicate fleet attacking Nexus Station seemed smaller than the other two, but they were more organized. They focused their attacks on the station's defensive platforms while smaller ships harassed the confused. Council fleet. Lisa turned away from the main screen and activated her personal communication system. All human ships, this is Captain Morgan. Report your positions, one by one, her ship commanders responded. Captain Frank Torres of the UES Vanguard was positioned behind the main syndicate fleet at New Kelmer. His ship's stealth systems were keeping him hidden among the debris of an old battle. Commander Helen Rodriguez of the UES Shadow was near the Xanthari colonies, close enough to monitor enemy communications. Captain Robert Chun of the UE Strike was positioned between two of the syndicate fleets, where he could intercept messages being sent between them. 8 other human ships were scattered across the battle zone, all in positions that had seemed random to the alien commanders. But Lisa knew exactly why each ship was where it was. All ships maintain communication silence and prepare for coordinated strike, Lisa ordered. Wait for my signal, Lisa turned to her tactical officer. Show me the syndicate communication patterns. Commander Carter worked at his console for several minutes. Slowly, a new display appeared showing the flow of information between the 3 enemy fleets. Lines of light connected the command ships, showing how the syndicate was coordinating their attacks. There, Lisa said, pointing to several key nodes in the network. Those are the relay ships. They're maintaining communication between the fleets and ensuring the timing of the attacks remains synchronized. If we destroy those ships, the fleets lose contact with each other, Carter realized. Exactly. 3 coordinated attacks become 3 separate battles. Lisa studied the display for several more minutes, calculating distances and timing. The syndicate's coordination was impressive, but it was also their weakness. They had become dependent on constant communication to maintain their advantage. Open channel to all human ships, Lisa commanded. This is Captain Morgan. Execute Operation Silent Strike. Target the relay vessels only. Ignore all other enemy ships. Strike in 30 seconds and withdraw immediately. Lisa watched the countdown timer on her screen. Around the galaxy, 11 other human ships were preparing to attack targets that the massive alien fleets had completely ignored. The Syndicate and the Council forces were focused on destroying each other's main battleships. No one was paying attention to the small communication vessels that kept the enemy fleets working together. 10 seconds, Lisa announced. At exactly the right moment, 12 human ships struck simultaneously. The UES Vanguard destroyed 2 Syndicate relay ships near New Kelmer. The UES Shadow eliminated a communication cruiser at the Xanthari colonies. The UES Strike hit 3 relay vessels that were coordinating between the fleets. The effect was immediate and dramatic. At New Kelmer, part of the Syndicate fleet stopped firing and began moving toward different targets. Their commanders had lost contact with the overall battle plan and were making decisions based on local conditions only. At the Xanthari colonies, a large group of enemy ships suddenly changed course and began retreating toward what they thought was a rally point. But without communication with their commanders, they were actually moving away from the battle and leaving their allies unsupported. At Nexus Station, the Syndicate attack lost its focus as different groups of ships began following different objectives. Some continued attacking the station while others moved to defend against threats that no longer existed. Communication breakdown confirmed across all 3 battle zones, Carter reported. The Syndicate fleets are no longer coordinating their attacks, Lisa smiled for the first time in days. Signal all human ships to withdraw to safe positions. Our job is done. What about the battles? Shouldn't we help the Council fleets now that the enemy is disorganized? Lisa shook her head. The Council commanders know their own territories and their own tactics. Now that they're facing separate battles instead of a coordinated assault, they have every advantage they need to win. On the screen, the results of the disrupted coordination were already visible. At New Kelmer, the Kelmerian barriers were holding more easily now that only part of the enemy fleet was attacking them. Some Kelmorian ships had begun launching counterattacks against the confused syndicate forces at the Xanthari colonies. Commander Vextar had noticed that enemy reinforcements had stopped arriving. His warriors were still outnumbered, but the odds were improving rapidly as more syndicate ships lost contact with their commanders and began withdrawing. At Nexus Station, General Mordak's mixed fleet was finally able to coordinate properly. Now that they were facing a disorganized enemy attack instead of a precisely timed assault. "Captain," Lieutenant Davis called from the communications station. "We're receiving a message from Admiral Kane. He wants a full report on our activities." Lisa walked to the communication console. "Tell the Admiral that all human ships completed their assigned patrol routes successfully. No casualties, no damage to any vessels. What about Operation Silent Strike?" Lisa smiled again. "What operation?" "We were conducting routine patrols in empty space while the real heroes were fighting the enemy." Commander Carter looked confused. "But Captain, we just saved 3 worlds and probably thousands of lives. Did we?" Lisa asked innocently. "I don't see any human ships engaged in combat with syndicate forces." "Do you?" Carter checked his tactical display. All 12 human ships had withdrawn from the battle zones immediately after their strikes. No human vessel was visible on any of the main battle screens where the alien fleets were fighting. "I see your point," Carter said with a grin. "We were never here." Lisa returned to her captain's chair and watched as the 3 battles slowly turned in favor of the Council forces. The Syndicate had planned for organized resistance, but they had not prepared for the chaos that followed the loss of their co. 3 days after the battle, Captain Lisa Morgan stood once again in a council meeting room. But this time, everything was different. The room was packed with alien representatives from dozens of worlds. News of the victory over the Void Syndicate had spread quickly through the galaxy, and everyone wanted to understand how the seemingly impossible had been achieved. Commander Vextar sat at the main table, his insectoid features showing signs of exhaustion. His forearms were bandaged from the fierce fighting at the Xanthari colonies. Despite his injuries, he had insisted on attending the meeting personally. High Strategist Quillenth's crystalline form still shimmered, but the light seemed dimmer than before. The battle for New Kelmer had drained enormous energy from the Kelmerian defense systems. Her people had won, but barely. General Mordak's tentacles moved slowly as he reviewed battle reports on his datapad. The defense of Nexus Station had been successful, but the coordination problems between different species had cost many lives. Admiral Kane sat beside Lisa, looking proud but puzzled. Earth's fleet had played no visible role in any of the 3 major battles, yet the human ships had returned without damage, and with complete mission reports filed on schedule. The Council recognizes the heroic efforts of all species in repelling the Syndicate assault, announced Chancellor Zeph Rain, the elderly leader of the Galactic Council. His voice carried the weight of centuries of diplomatic experience. However, we must understand how the enemy's coordination failed so completely. Commander Vextar leaned forward. "My warriors fought bravely, but the enemy was too numerous. Then, suddenly, their attack patterns changed. Ships that had been working together began acting independently. It was as if they could no longer speak to each other." "We observed the same phenomenon at New Kelmer," Quillenth confirmed. The Syndicate bombardment was perfectly coordinated until a specific moment when it became erratic and unfocused. General Mordak nodded his agreement. At Nexus Station, the enemy assault lost direction in the middle of the battle. Different groups of ships began following different strategies, which allowed our forces to respond more effectively. Chancellor Zeph Rain studied the reports carefully. Our intelligence analysts have found evidence that several Syndicate communication vessels were destroyed during the battle. These ships were responsible for maintaining contact between the three fleets. But none of our forces engaged those targets, Vextar said, confusion clear in his clicking voice. My ships were fighting the main enemy fleet. We had no time to hunt for communication vessels. The same is true for my forces, Quillenth added. We were defending against direct assault. Our barriers were fully committed to protecting New Kelmer. General Mordak looked equally puzzled. The defense of Nexus Station required all available ships. We could not spare vessels for raids against such secondary targets. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Someone had destroyed the Syndicate communication network, but none of the main defending fleets had been responsible. Chancellor Zeph Rain turned his attention to the human delegation. Admiral Kane, your ships were conducting patrol operations. During the battle, did you observe any unusual activity? Admiral Kane looked at Lisa, who nodded slightly. Captain Morgan was in command of our patrol operations. She can provide the most accurate report. All eyes in the room focused on Lisa. She stood slowly, feeling the weight of dozens of different gazes. Some were curious, others suspicious. And a few showed the same dismissive attitude she had grown accustomed to over the past months. Honored delegates, Lisa began, her voice calm and clear. The human fleet observed the battle from our assigned patrol positions. We maintained communication silence to avoid interfering with Council operations. But you must have seen something, Vextar insisted. Ships do not simply explode by themselves. Lisa paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. We observed that the Syndicate was using a sophisticated communication network to coordinate their attacks. This network relied on specific relay vessels positioned throughout the battle zone. You observed this from patrol positions? Quillenth asked, skepticism evident in her chiming voice. Human ships are equipped with advanced sensor systems. Lisa explained. We were able to monitor communication patterns across all three battle areas. General Mordak's tentacles writhed with impatience. Monitoring is not the same as acting. Who destroyed the relay ships? Lisa met his gaze steadily. The relay ships were destroyed by precise strikes at critical moments when the main fleets were engaged in heavy combat. The strikes were small, surgical, and designed to minimize disruption to the larger battle. Surgical strikes require surgical precision, Chancellor Zeph Rain observed. And excellent timing. Yes, sir. The room was quiet for several long moments. Finally, Commander Vextar spoke again. Captain Morgan, are you saying that human ships were responsible for these strikes? I am saying that someone recognized the importance of the communication network and acted to disrupt it at the most effective moment. Someone with detailed knowledge of Syndicate tactics, Quillenth added thoughtfully. Someone who had been studying their methods for months, General Mordak realized. Admiral Kane stood beside Lisa. Captain Morgan has been analyzing Syndicate behavior patterns since our first council meeting. She predicted this type of coordinated assault and prepared contingency plans. Chancellor Zeph Rain leaned back in his chair, studying Lisa with new interest. Captain, 6 months ago you said very little during our diplomatic meetings. Many delegates concluded that humans lacked the warrior spirit necessary for council membership. I was listening and learning, Lisa replied simply. Learning what? Learning how different species approach warfare. Learning their strengths and weaknesses. Learning how the Syndicate might exploit those predictable patterns. Vextar's mandibles clicked slowly as understanding dawned. You were silent because you were studying us. I was silent because I had nothing useful to say until I understood the situation completely. Quillenth's crystalline form brightened slightly, and when you finally understood, you acted without seeking glory or recognition. The goal was to protect Council worlds, not to gain credit for humanity. General Mordak looked at the other delegates around the table. In our military traditions, we honor warriors who speak loudly of their victories. But perhaps there is wisdom in warriors who act quietly and effectively. Chancellor Zephyrain stood, calling for the attention of the entire room. The Galactic Council owes a debt of gratitude to all species who participated in the defense against the Void Syndicate. But we also recognize that victory was achieved through careful planning, precise execution, and the wisdom to act at the correct moment rather than simply reacting to events. He turned to face Lisa directly. Captain Morgan, the Council formally requests that humanity accept full membership in our organization, with all the rights and responsibilities that membership entails. Lisa inclined her head respectfully. On behalf of Earth, I accept. Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, the Council requests that you serve as our strategic coordination advisor. Your role would be to help different species work together more effectively in future conflicts. Murmurs of agreement came from around the room. Even the delegates who had previously dismissed human capabilities were nodding their approval. I would be honored to serve, Lisa replied. Commander Vextar stood, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of respect. Captain Morgan, I owe you an apology. I judged you by my own species standards rather than recognizing the value of your different approach. No apology is necessary, Commander. Your warriors fought with great courage. Without their bravery, disrupting the communication network would not have been enough to win the battle. Quillenth's form shimmered with what Lisa had learned was the Kelmarian expression of admiration. You honor our contributions while downplaying your own. This is true leadership. General Mordak's tentacles swayed in agreement. In the future, when the Council faces threats, we will remember that the quietest voice in the room may have the most important things to say. The meeting continued for several more hours as the delegates discussed new defensive strategies and IMPROVED coordination protocols. But the tone was completely different from previous meetings. Instead of each species promoting their own methods, they asked questions about how to work together more effectively. Lisa found herself at the center of these discussions, no longer the silent observer, but an active participant whose insights were valued and respected. The aliens asked her opinion on everything from ship formations to communication protocols to long-term strategic planning. When the meeting finally ended, Lisa walked with Admiral Kane through the station's corridors. They passed groups of alien beings who nodded respectfully as they recognized the human officers. It's remarkable how much things have changed, Kane observed. 6 months ago, they barely acknowledged our existence. Now they're asking for our leadership, Lisa smiled slightly. They haven't really changed, Admiral. They're still the same species with the same strengths and weaknesses. The only thing that changed is their understanding of what humans can contribute. And what exactly do we contribute? Patience, observation, the ability to see patterns that others miss because they're too close.